Hello and welcome back to Literally Heinous. This is the first episode of the new year and we're kicking it off with an author interview. This is my second ever author interview and I love doing these so much because it's really gotten me back into reading. So today we have an author named Laura Buchwald on Literally Heinous. Hello, Laura. Welcome to Literally
Hello.
Heinous.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So Laura just published the second installment of a trilogy called the Table Trilogy, and her second book is called The Book of Reservations. So I was sent this book, and I was really excited. I'm always honored to be thought of, and to be sent an advance copy of the book makes me feel like I'm in Devil Wears Prada. And I was a little nervous because I knew it was the second of a trilogy and they didn't send me the first copy and I was like, oh, I'm not going to understand. And I picked it up and I was like, you know what, let me just read as much as I can and I'll try to, plug in. And this, I couldn't put it down. I read 100 pages in one day. It was so good. And it truly is like a standalone book. And it's just so fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you. And that's actually really nice to hear that it functions as a standalone. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I essentially had very little context. I knew what it was about, which is, I feel like it was written for me, not to make everything about me. So it is about a young woman who starts a restaurant with her situationship. Can I say situationship? Derek,
You can.
who's public enemy number one, by the way. He is not going over well in this house. So they buy a restaurant together in New York City. So it's about New York restaurant culture, which I love. And the restaurant is New Orleans. New Orleans is my favorite city. So that
Great. Mine
immediately
too.
hooked me back in. And the main character, Josie, the protagonist, she has a special power where she can speak to people on the other side, dead people. She can see ghosts, she can talk to them, she channels them. She's basically a medium, but without that professionally, which is something that has always fascinated me. So thank you for writing this book for me specifically.
You are so welcome. And just so you know, Derek does redeem himself,
Okay. Well,
I think.
I'm a tough critic on men's. But I love the book so much. So I know that you have had these characters have been rattling around in your brain since 2006. So the first
Roughly,
book,
yeah.
yeah, so the first book was a long time coming. Can you talk about your relationship to the characters, how you thought of
Sure.
them, and then the journey from conception to publication?
Absolutely. It was a long journey. So this book was inspired, the first book was inspired by a restaurant where I used to spend a lot of time in the early to mid aughts, down in the West Village. And first, I got to know the staff. I was a regular there. I got to know the staff and to really see the way, for one, they'd all come to New York to do different things, taken these temporary jobs in hospitality and stayed. And I got to understand the way they really operated as a loving and dysfunctional family, where even if you couldn't stand someone on a given day, you had each other's backs. So I was interested in the dynamic of the restaurant staff. And one day, I've always been sort of sensitive to spiritual energy, and I say all of this with a grain of salt, but one day I got this familiar creepy feeling and I jokingly asked the bartender if the restaurant was haunted, and he said, yeah, a lot of people say that it is. Those were the two, those two elements were the impetus for the first book and then the series. And I wrote the very first part of the first book, 2000, I think it was 2007 actually, but got a little ways into it and then just put it aside for over a decade. Worked on other projects, did some ghost writing, started other fiction projects, did a lot of freelance writing and editing. And then I realized these characters just weren't really leaving my consciousness.
Yeah.
I had a couple of dreams about them, and I decided over 10 years after I stopped writing to pick it back up and see where it went.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
amazing. So I know that you wrote the first book. The first book was intended to be a standalone book, and it was your publisher or agent that said there needs to be a series.
It was the publisher, Ronan Weatherford. So I finished it. I started querying agents at the end of 2019, and then 2020 showed up in all its pandemic glory, and I put that on hold. But my agent actually reached out to me that summer, apologizing for being on delay. We were all on delay at that point. I signed with her. I did a couple of rounds of revisions and she shopped it around widely. And then we found Ronan Weatherford and they like to work in multiples. They asked if I would write a series. And without thinking through what that would entail, I said yes immediately.
Yes.
Uh, so, I pulled sequel out of what was intended to be a standalone.
Yeah, and it's this book, I mean, it is standalone. Like I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't understand what could have like happened before
Right?
this. I mean, everything is explained so nicely. I think I was just conditioned with the like Twilight and the Hunger Games and the Harry Potter and like
Mm-hmm.
those things. I was like, I'm not gonna understand it, but it is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
So when you were given that assignment, do you have like mentors in the writing space? Like how were you able to do that?
I do have mentors and I have good friends who are novelists. I'm very lucky. I have a fairly robust writing community. And I have my mother, who is the best reader, a brilliant writer, and the best reader I know. So I have a lot of people to bounce ideas off of. I have beta readers, to read my works in progress and give me feedback. And my agent at the time really helped me to figure out where to go with the trilogy.
Right.
She's no longer in the business, but she was a very editorial agent, which
Yeah.
I was lucky to have.
Yes, that's incredible. I love the theme, obviously, of just like grief, afterlife, speaking. And I love the other side when you call it that, when you refer to it as the other side, because it reminds me of this song from Princess and the Frog. Have you seen that movie?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's the, Disney Princess and the
Yeah.
Frog, obviously, and it's a New Orleans movie. Like it's
Oh,
so
right.
if yeah,
Yes.
if you I know that New Orleans means a lot too, and it means a lot to me too, but that movie is so like encompassing of New Orleans culture, and it's just really good. And there's this really good musical number sung by the antagonist called I Got Friends on the Other Side. And he's
Ooh.
like this voodoo guy. He's the one that like turns her into a frog. Spoiler alert. But that's like one of my favorite Disney movies. So whenever you say like talking to people on the other side, which I think is just such a beautiful way of saying like dead, because it's not like dead is
Right.
derogatory, but why does it feel derogatory?
Well, because it feels so final, and my point, one of my points in these books is that it isn't so final.
Hmm.
That I mean, I've spoken with enough spiritual mediums over the years to really believe that there is something, that energy does not die, that our departed loved ones are still on some plane and still around. So, yeah, it really is in my mind the other side. We're here, they're there, and we're all existing.
Yeah. What do you attribute to your spidey senses of people on the other side?
Well, the house that I grew up in, my sister and I both had feelings when we were younger that there was an otherworldly presence there. It's about 100 years old now, the house, and it was in a very historic part of my town that factored strongly into the American Revolution. There are a lot of much older houses around it. And I've since come to learn that the person my parents bought the house from back in 1970, 71, had passed away the prior to our moving in.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's who was haunting it, but my sister and I always felt a presence there. And there were certain parts of the house where I felt this really strong presence, which was the same feeling I got at the restaurant that inspired this series. The same
Yeah.
sort of creeping back of the neck feeling that there's just somebody else in a room that's supposed to be empty. Um, I was raised without a religion, so I was raised without a strong sense of what happens next or
Hmm.
what happens after. And I think I've always looked for some form of comfort, and I find this very comforting. I went to my first medium in 2004 at around the same time that these feelings were coming back to me much stronger. I had a couple of experiences where I would walk into a place and sense that someone had passed there, and it turns out that they had recently. I
Yeah.
went to my first spiritual medium, and it was bewildering and exciting and comforting and convincing.
Hmm.
This was the days before social media, the days before you could Google me and learn everybody I was ever connected to. And the specificity of the information that this medium was imparting to me was convincing.
Yeah. So what did they say?
It was the people who came through, the names, the methods by which they they passed away. I would ask, if he would give me a name, I would ask that person to give me the name of somebody living that I would connect them to, just to be sure it was the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, these very specific names kept coming through. There was one person, a friend of mine who passed actually in 9/11, who came through, and I said, and he came through. This medium said, "I'm seeing the name John and then 911." And I said,
Mm.
"Okay, I know exactly who that is."
Wow.
And he said, "Who is Jay and how is the baby?" Jay was the friend who had introduced us, and his wife had just had a baby. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was things as just anchored in truth as that. Um, just the names. And there were some names that I wasn't recognizing. He recorded the session and said, "I record these so that you can play it back afterwards and see if anything resonates," that didn't during the session. And I played it back and was like, "Oh, that's who that was. That's who Patrick was."
Yeah.
Somebody who wasn't necessarily in the forefront of my mind, but I would
Mm-hmm.
realize, all of the evidence would add up.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. Have you ever had any communication yourself with the other side? No.
Not directly, no, just through mediums. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had those inklings, those
Yeah.
feelings, but yeah. And as you said earlier, I like to know they're out there. I like to be able to speak with them through mediums. I love getting signs,
Mm.
whether it's music or names or numbers or whatever things that you associate with somebody who's departed. I love when these signs come up. I don't need to ever see a ghost.
Yeah.
Uh, because I do have trepidation about all of this, but I
Hmm.
find it just the word comforting keeps coming up. I find it
Yeah.
immensely comforting.
So when you enter a space and you do feel like how you felt in that restaurant, the chill down your
Hmm.
spine, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel trepidatious or are you excited, curious?
Curious, a little uneasy, and curious.
Yeah.
But these are never places that I'm going into by myself, with the exception at that restaurant. It was in the upstairs ladies' room
Yes.
that I felt that presence. So it got to the point where I would wait until I saw that someone else was going up there before I would go up. I didn't want to be in there alone. And the restaurant has changed hands several times, but it's still a restaurant.
Yes.
I went back there recently, relatively recently, with a friend, and we asked the wait staff if they ever felt anything paranormal, and most of the people we spoke with did. One person said, "I never want to close this place by myself." I went to use the ladies' room, which is the one part of the restaurant that is largely unchanged from how it
Hmm.
was, 20 something years ago. And I got that feeling, and I was just like, okay, it's
Yes.
still here.
Yeah, and for the people listening, the restaurant is And Son on Ninth
Mm-hmm.
Street. So it's a steakhouse. So any of my friends listening, like, let's go. I'm down to go. I don't have that sense. I've
Yeah.
never felt haunted before, and I'm totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is gifted. She is able to connect with people that have departed, people on the other side. She's able to call into them for prayer.
Wow.
And I know, I joke with her. I'm like, if you applied yourself, like you could be a medium, like she could do it. I know
Yeah.
she could. She's growing her business she runs retreats for
Mm.
women who are in like transitional phases in their life. So she does a lot of that spiritual work.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to share this story. She gave me permission to share it. So her best friend's husband passed away a few years ago, like very suddenly, very traumatic. And pretty much immediately after he passed, like a week after, he started coming through to her. And it was
Ooh.
her most vivid form of communication with the departed. Like she's seen signs, she's had a litany. Almost every other conversation we have, she's like, "You're never gonna believe this." And I
Oh,
know.
wow.
So with this one, he really started to come through. And one of the things that he said to her was, "My best friend needs help, and you need to tell him to stop drinking." And my mom is like, hell no. I have met this guy 2 times. I am not telling your grieving best friend to stop drinking because you came to me. So she went back and forth with the dead husband for 3 days. And she was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not telling a stranger to stop drinking. And she woke up in the middle of the night. So her favorite astrologist, her name is Molly McCord. I don't know if you know her. So that's my mom's, that's her like Taylor Swift. So
Okay, I'm
Molly
writing that
McCord.
down.
Oh my
Molly
God. Yeah,
McCord.
she's like very astrology heavy. So I don't know
Uh-huh.
if you're into that, but she does the whole it's too much for me, but my mom is like that's her Beyonce. So Molly McCord is randomly playing on her phone. She wakes up in the middle of the night and Molly McCord just random podcast, random timestamp, and it's like in life we have to have difficult conversations and you will hurt people by doing that. And my mom's like, "Fuck, I have to do this."
Mm-hmm.
So she texts this guy and she's like, "Hey, can we talk?" He calls her and she tells him, like, this came
Mm-hmm.
to me. I tried to say no. This man, your best friend, says that you are a ticking time bomb and you need to get your health under control. And the best friend is actually pretty receptive and hangs up. And my mom's like, oh my God, please never let that happen again. I look insane. And then he calls her back like 30 minutes later and he's like, did he really say ticking time bomb? My mom said yes. And he says, that was our inside joke. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That's
yeah,
amazing. So when your mom gets these messages, is she hearing them? Is
it's just like loud voices in her head.
uh-huh.
She had another interesting one. She didn't give me permission to tell it, but I'll ask her if I'm sure it's fine.
Okay.
So
We'll
she
edit it
did
out if not.
actually we talked about this on I did it my mom will podcast with me sometimes. So
Uh-huh.
she went on a psychedelic retreat like 2 years ago and did like guided meditations like on shrooms and then bufo, which is frog venom or toad
Uh-huh.
venom. I don't know. And she in one of her like psychedelic dreams met Robin Williams. And Robin Williams like came through to her and was like, "Tell my wife I'm okay." And
Wow.
my mom was just like, it just came through really strongly. And there was something else that he said, but my mom was able to get in touch with Robin Williams's wife's publicist somehow
Uh-huh.
and got the mess. And the publicist responded and said, I don't remember her name, Robin Williams's wife believes in all this stuff and wants to hear the message. So my mom sent Robin Williams's wife the email. She never heard back from her, but it was
Oh, how
crazy.
interesting. Is she at all interested in developing this
I
further? I mean, it sounds fairly developed, but in doing something with it?
I don't know. I mean, I always say that she has magical powers. Like that's what like I
Hmm.
just believe that she does. And she's just like I don't know, has these special powers. So I don't know if like mediumship is for her. I mean, it's a tough weight to carry.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the mediums that I've spoken with, well, for one thing, they've all said, this is my responsibility. Um, and for another, they have to be able to shut it off, or they would just be inundated with messages
Yeah.
24/7, from their own people
Yeah.
and from everybody they walk past on the street.
Yeah,
So
it's a
it is a
tough
big weight to carry.
burden, and I don't imagine she would want to. I think she could hone her skills if she wanted to, but I mean, it's a lot. Like the thing that hooked me into this book so much, like when I was first reading it, and this is what my selling point to everyone I've been talking to about it was in the book, Josie and Derek, the main characters, are interviewing managers for the restaurant. And each person that they interview, someone from their life that has passed on comes through in the interview. And it was so interesting to me to see, like, just the creativity of, like, oh, this person's dead ex girlfriend, or this person's, like, I don't remember what everyone else is, but everyone
Right,
came. Like, a spirit would come to Josie and be like, don't hire them, or like, do hire them, or
right.
whatever. And it was just so fascinating to me.
Thank you. Those were very fun scenes to write. I enjoyed that.
Yes. It reminded me of this terrible movie that I don't recommend called Ghost of Girlfriends Past, I think with Gerard
Okay.
Butler and some Jennifer. It's like he's like this leading man, like this hot guy, but this girl, like the main girl, she's able to like see his ex-girlfriends of over time. And I don't know, it just kind of
Hmm.
reminded me of that. Okay, but perfect. So I also wanted to talk about New Orleans and what your relationship is with that city.
So I've been going to New Orleans since 2000, I think was the first time I went there, 1999 or 2000. I've been there probably about 16 or 18 times. And I just love that city. I love everything about it culturally, the music, the food, the magic, the people,
Hmm.
the beautiful Spanish moss and crepe myrtle, and just, oh, it's such a choice, and a treat for all of the senses.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate the relationship that New Orleans as a whole has with the dead.
Yes.
How they celebrate, second line parades after funerals. And I know of somebody who attended his own funeral, like he was actually
What?
physically there. Yeah, his body was actually at his funeral. That's a little extreme for me, but I just think that they do a beautiful job of honoring their departed loved ones, and
Yes.
that was where the ghost table idea for the ghost table trilogy came from, a restaurant there that sets a table every night for their resident ghost. And what's so interesting in New Orleans is, you've spent time there, um, it's not even a do you believe in ghosts? Even if you haven't had the experience yourself, people who have. Your next
Hmm.
door neighbor has the experiences. You frequent places that are very open about their resident ghosts, restaurants or what, bars and bookshops. And so I just think it's just a beautiful celebration of life and afterlife.
Yeah.
And it's um, it's inspiring, it's creative, it's magical, it's unlike any place I've ever been. And I got to spend a lot of time there while I was writing the first book, which takes place in part there. In the house that Josie visits, I modeled the place where I used to stay with a friend after this. Um, and so it was great because I was able to, like, in real time,
Yeah.
get information, call out to my friend and say, how high are your ceilings? And, write in a description, and track the walks that I took and the places that I went. And it's just, the muse is very strong in New Orleans. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to going back there to work more on book three.
Yes. I'm doing my bachelorette party in New Orleans.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear details on that, but
I know. I
we don't
am
need.
already so excited to plan. I only went one time. I went with girlfriends a few years ago, like nine of us. And I was not
Uh huh.
expecting to like New Orleans as much as I did. I knew I would like it, but I just adored it. And one of my favorite things was we did a tour of jazz clubs on Frenchmen Street, and we
Cool.
got
Yeah.
like a private tour guide. It was essentially just an elevated bar crawl, but we had
Uh
this
huh.
amazing tour guide named Quay who was just like the talk of the town. He was a jazz player and he took us. Our tour was from like 9 till midnight or something. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
like, "You guys should do the later one." We're like, "Okay." And it was so much fun. And he, between every jazz club we would go to, he would do like history lessons in between, which was
Cool.
just so much fun. And then we did one of those ghost tours,
Uh huh.
and that was fun too. But I mean, I love a tour. I was a tour guide in college, and I'm like very passionate about like history and people that are knowledgeable about it and like good speakers. So yeah, going back to New Orleans for my bachelorette, I found that this tour guide that we had, he also does like a driving 4 hour tour of New Orleans.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm really excited because I love like the dark history of New Orleans. Like I
Sure,
mean,
and there is plenty of that.
I don't love it, but I enjoyed learning about it, like the slave
Mm-hmm.
trade and like 12 years a
Mm-hmm.
slave and like Hurricane Katrina. And like there's just so
Mm-hmm.
much stuff that has happened in New Orleans and so much like it's so interesting. And I just cannot wait to nerd out with this guy and get because he's going to
Yeah.
drive us like all around. So and then we're obviously going to do the whole like Frenchman Street. And I thought that I would
Right.
hate Bourbon Street. I was like, oh, I'm going to hate it. It was electric. Like,
Yeah. Frenchman Street, which I've seen really, like, explode over the 20 plus years that I've been going there.
yeah.
That's more my speed, but, yeah, you have to experience Bourbon Street while
Yeah,
you're
I
there
thought I'd hate it.
at
We
least
had
once.
so much fun on Bourbon Street. It's like,
Great. Have you ever been to the cemeteries there?
no, I was only there for like 2 days and I was just like, this
Okay.
is not enough.
Yeah. I mean, 2 days, even the food alone, 2 days is not enough. The
I
food is so
know.
fabulous.
Yeah, we talk a lot about afterlife. You talk a lot about it. And I wanted to, and the publicist said I could ask you this, so this is not an invasion of privacy.
Okay.
Your belief in afterlife and what do you think happens to us?
I don't know what happens to us. I don't know what that looks like. But I do believe that we are on some plane where we can look in on our survivors. You know, it was interesting. So I lost my father last summer, and 2 summers ago at this point, this 2024, and I spoke to that my favorite medium, Philip Quinn, a little too soon after. You know, they recommend that you wait a certain number of months after losing somebody. In part, they recommend that so that you don't go in like in the middle of a hard grief and, you know, have one person that you desperately need to hear from, you know, and if it doesn't come through, it's a totally different experience. But also, what I learned was that I spoke with him a little too soon because my father wasn't ready yet. He
Mm,
was still learning the ropes. And I don't know what those ropes look like, but I've spoken with several mediums since he's passed. And he always comes through with a friend of his, you know, somebody that I knew, you know, somebody he was close with in life. So I do get the sense that we get to hang out with our friends and family up there.
yeah.
That any grievances that existed, and I said up there, I don't even know if it is up there. I don't know where it
Out
is
there, in
physically.
there.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you know, grievances are no longer exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, the belief system in the book is that spirits are the ones who have crossed and who have, um, you know, transcended planes and can come in and deliver messages and look in, where ghosts are the earthbound spirits who still have business that needs to be attended to,
Mm,
whether it's these messages that need to get out or, you know, your mother's friend's husband, you know, had
yeah.
this, you know, couldn't rest or transcend until he got this very important message across to his best friend, you know. That is what I've always understood, you know, and I've spoken with a lot of people who are much more, you know, knowledgeable asterisk about what happens after. But that is the fundamental difference between a ghost and a spirit, according to
Yeah.
the experts on such matters, is that ghosts still have unfinished business. Like that show, that what was that show? Uh, the Ghost Whisperer. It was all, you know,
Yeah.
which I didn't really watch, but I know the concept of it.
One thing that I find is so Netflix did like a documentary series about grief afterlife. It was so good. And I can't remember what it's called, of course.
Oh, I
Um,
think I saw it. Was that Surviving Death or
I think
something
it
like that?
was. Yeah, it was like a six
Yeah.
episode.
Yes. Yeah. It
That
was
was
really interesting.
crazy. My favorite, I think it was my favorite, but I find it so interesting. Kids, like little kids that are able, that shit would freak me out. If my kid came in
Hmm.
talking about some lady he saw, I would return him. Like, that's
Right.
terrifying.
It is terrifying. The little kid ghost connection is pretty terrifying, but they say that, you know, small children and animals who haven't, well, you know, small children who haven't yet developed their powers of completely rational thought and talking themselves out of things, and animals
Yeah.
who never develop those are able to see spirits. I back in 2002 lost a very good friend. And the last time I saw her, I took a picture of her in this one part of my apartment. I got a dog a couple of months after she passed, and he would be sitting in the living room and then just bolt upright and stare at the space where I had basically
Ugh.
last seen my friend. I know,
Hmm.
goosebumps. Um, you know, there is something to that. Animals certainly have more than five senses.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I do think it's interesting, like with kids, because they are the closest to being not earthbound, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yep. It
Have
does make
you had
sense.
any stories with that? Do you have any kids in your life that have that you've seen it with?
I have kids. My niece and nephew are fascinated and also um, nervous about the concept, and they're you know, they've asked me a lot, like, about whether their houses have a spiritual energy in them.
Hmm.
Um, I have a friend's daughter. Actually, both of her daughters have, when they were much younger, had something where I remember her younger daughter came in to wake her up one morning and said, I had a dream about an old lady, and she told me to say hi to blank family
Yeah.
friend. My friend called the family friend later that day to find out that his grandmother had just passed away the night before.
Mm.
Um, one time we were walking her toddler daughter in a stroller and my dog. We were up in the country, and there was this old abandoned house with a fence outside of it. And the little girl just turned to the fence and said, hello, and started waving. My friend and I both, like, goosebumps, and just like walked as quickly as we could past that spot. And on our way back, returning to our house, she did the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh.
so, I've experienced children who, and plus children have active imaginations. So it's hard to say, but yeah, I find that really fascinating. And don't get me
Yeah.
started on the kids who remember past lives.
Ooh,
That's a
that's a
whole other book
crazy one.
series.
Yes,
Hmm.
that I mean they're interrelated.
Yeah,
I think in that
certainly.
show there was a little kid that in a past life was like a French film director, which is
Uh-huh.
hilarious. Because so
Yeah.
like this little kid, like this 5-year-old was like super like some savant in film. So funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was a
Um,
really good series. I forgot about that one.
I know. I was thinking about it when I was reading this book. I was like, yeah, I was like, I need to pick that back up. So it's nice to be a believer, I would say. I think
Hmm.
that I am fortunate to not, have a lot of grief in my life. Thank God, I'm very blessed. And you have mentioned, your father passed, you had a friend that passed. What advice would you give to someone that wants to be a believer but just can't?
I mean, if you can do it, talk to a great medium. Um, you know, uh, I've had skeptics in my life speak with one of two mediums whom I've returned to several times, and come away with, if not a belief, at least like a chipping away at their skepticism. And well, that could be coincidence, but so, and also there are so many books written by mediums, so many books written by people who've survived death and, in the operating room or in an accident where they've been brought back to life. There are, if you get some good recommendations for viable writing on these subjects, there's a lot of evidence out there. Um, and then, I mean, I don't know how much belief is a choice.
Yeah.
I think you do need to want to believe in order to believe, unless you have just the most profound experience, that you
Hmm.
didn't ask for.
Yeah. I think that with, social media, like there's so many just grifters out there and charlatans
Hmm.
and with any
Absolutely.
industry, like health coaching and mental health and all of this,
Yeah.
especially with mediumship and people can prey on other people's grief.
100%. And actually, the word charlatan I use often in talking about how, as in any field, I mean, there are charlatan accountants. Any field has its very talented people, it's not quite as talented people, and
Yes.
it's frauds.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's why I caution against just going to any medium who says they're a medium. There's an organization called the Forever Family Foundation for grieving families, and on their website they have a page of certified mediums who've passed rigorous testing through them. Um, so that's a good place to start to look for somebody. That said, my beloved Philip Quinn is not on that page, but he is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Just had a reading with him yesterday and said it was just the timing and everything that came through was just
Yeah. Yeah, I
stunning.
gifted my mom an appointment with a medium 1 year for her birthday.
Great
And that is a great birthday gift for the right person.
for the right person,
Like it's
100%.
got to be the right person. But yeah, she loved it. She had an amazing experience. Okay, so for my favorite question, this is what I always think
Okay,
about when I'm reading books. If the Ghost Table trilogy were to be adapted into a movie or TV show,
who would play?
who would play who? And what's the vibe?
It's funny. I've thought about this a lot over the years. All of the people who, when I first started writing The Coat Check Girl, all of the people who would have played the roles are greatly aged out. I'm honestly not sure at this point. Um, and that's a really good question that I would like to have an answer to. So I'm going to do a little due
Yeah.
diligence.
Well, who were your originals?
Who were my originals? This is a tough question. You know what? I might need to pass on this question because I don't
That's
have a
okay.
ready answer. Is that
Well,
okay?
I'll tell you mine if you want to hear them.
Yes, I would love to hear yours.
Okay, for
I would
Josie,
love to hear yours. Yeah.
yes, Literally Heinous is a pop culture podcast first. We love
Okay.
celebrities. I've got behind me Jessica Simpson, Julia Fox, and Charlie XCX. I've
Okay.
got
And I don't
Bernie
even know
over
who
here.
Julia Fox is. I'm
You do or
I
don't?
I do not. I am my pop culture. Even when I was your age, my pop culture references were not super strong. I
Yeah.
tend to be a bit of a dinosaur, but of course I know who the others are, and
Yes,
Charlie XCX, of course.
I have a disease. I did not choose this life. This life was thrust upon me. I can't help
It's a
it.
gift.
Yes, you can. Other people can speak to dead people. I can channel Charlie XCX.
Perfect.
So I was thinking someone like quirky for Josie. Like I'm picturing
Yeah.
like small little face. Like I was kind of okay. Originally, I was thinking like Amelia Clark from Game of Thrones,
Okay.
Daenerys
Uh huh.
Targaryen, because she has that kind of like really expressive face, and the eyebrows. I could
Yeah.
see that.
Oh, I
I
like
was
that.
also thinking. Then I was thinking about Game of Thrones, and I was thinking Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. She's a little bit younger. She kind of has that like
Okay.
spunky vibe. So that's Arya Stark.
Uh
And
huh.
then this one's controversial. I don't know if you'll know who this is, but I actually think Joey King would be really good for this role.
I know the name.
So she was in these like terrible Netflix movies called The Kissing Booth. I don't recommend them. Do not watch them.
Okay. That's two
Um,
movies you do not recommend. So thank you.
it's like the best worst movies you'll ever see. Like I would
Okay.
watch them. Like my roommate and I, when we lived together, would watch them and kind of like make fun of them. So that was fun.
Right.
She's just a little spunky. She played Gypsy Rose Blanchard in the Hulu
Oh,
adaptation. But I just am picturing someone like a little quirky, like a little dorky for Josie.
sure. I
And
love
Ellie
it.
Kemper also came to mind just now.
Oh, Ellie
Yeah.
Kemper.
Yeah, from The Office and
Yes,
Unbreakable
of
Kimmy
course.
Schmidt.
There's one I do know. Um,
Hmm.
I'm writing these down because I'm going to pitch them to my film and TV agent.
You have a film and TV agent. Okay, wait,
I
scratch
do have a
all of
film and
that. I
TV
think
agent.
I should play Josie.
I think you could play Josie. Josie has long, dark, wavy hair. She's beautiful, and I there you go.
I think those could be Ruby. Did I say Josie? I'm in Ruby. I think I should be Josie.
Oh, you think those could be Ruby?
I think I was kind of like thinking because I think that
Okay.
Ruby would be really fun to cast too. I was mostly thinking about
Yeah.
Josie, but then Ruby, so in the book, Ruby is one of the spirits that she talks to, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with this character. Like she's spunky, she's kind of like sarcastic, she's a little bit rude, and I love Josie's relationship with her when she's just like, not now, Ruby. And
Right.
I love the idea of like telling a ghost, I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
Um,
They have a very special friendship that
yes.
Ruby shows up in book one at the very end of book one.
Oh,
Well, she actually kind of shows up throughout, but we really meet her at the end. And, you know, as with her gift and her kind of reluctant acceptance of it, Josie has come to reluctantly accept the fact that she's very good friends with the spirit and a mischievous one at that.
yes. Well, this would be a fantastic series. Like, I would watch the shit out of this. There's not enough content about, there's nothing really.
You know, it's so interesting because I mean, I would watch anything that dealt with these themes.
Hmm.
There's a lot out there about grief. There are some things about ghosts. There's that show Ghosts, which is,
Yeah.
you know, as with my book, it's not about questioning the existence. It's just a fact of the world
Yeah.
that's created in that series. And you know, and then New Orleans, going back to book one, I'm surprised by how little content there is that's set in New Orleans because it is such a vibrant and
Yes.
filmable city.
I was thinking about this for with like my bachelorette. I like to study for trips that I go on by
Uh huh.
watching movies, TV, and reading books about it. And I was thinking like what I could recommend to my friends, like if they want to like get in the New Orleans vibe. And it's literally Princess and the Frog, 12 Years a Slave, and Girls Trip,
Okay.
which is
And which is quite a diverse lineup. I would recommend the Coat Check Girl.
yes, of course.
There's some rich New Orleans stuff in there with actual places named. But I'm happy to give you my list of recommendations too if we
Yes.
connect offline.
Please do. And New Orleans is a big city for film and TV. It's
Hmm.
not as big as like Atlanta, but a lot gets happened there. I fully believe in this being adapted. I think it would be so much fun. And it's just a light take on grief. And who doesn't love, like, I just love exploring those themes of like death and ghosts. And I love seeing how creative writers and authors and screenwriters can be about death. So interesting. There's not enough about it. We get like the horror stuff, but I love the
Hmm.
levity.
We get the horror stuff and we get the deep, deep grief stuff.
Yes.
And my whole thing is it fucking sucks, but it's an inevitable part of life and a part of all of our existences. Um, it's evidence that we've loved so strongly when we grieve so strongly. Um, but it needs to be talked about. It does happen, and it does happen to all of us. And I want to take away some of the fear of it. Grief
Mm-hmm.
is so many things, and uh, fearing when it happens, of course, we all do. But being able to talk about it and connect with other people in our grief, I think it's super important.
Yeah, it is. So to finish up, I want to play a literally heinous original called Chic or Freak.
Okay.
So I will just give you some different scenarios and you can tell me if it's chic, which is like cool, fun, sexy, unique, or freak, which is like gauche, tacky, charlatan.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
Let's see.
Chic or freak tarot reading.
Chic.
Okay. Can you read tarot or do you get your
I
tarot
can.
read?
I have a deck. I've had tarot read, and uh, actually, very shortly after my dad passed, I had the best tarot reading I've ever had. That just touched on. I mean, this woman is truly gifted.
Wow.
Yeah,
Chic or freak making decisions based on astrology.
I would have to go with freak on that one. I mean, well, freak with an asterisk. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you think?
I would say freak too. A lot of people assume that I'm really into astrology because I have like curly hair and tattoos, but
Hmm.
I'm really not. I mean, I'm a Scorpio through and through. I know
Okay.
that. But I don't really do the rising sign. I don't really. My mom will be like, if I'm complaining about something, she's like, "Oh, well, the moon is super blood Gatorade moon." Like you, and I'm
Right.
like, "Girl,
Right.
I don't know about all that."
Right. I have friends who are astrologists, and I've had my chart done and this and that. There's interesting stuff in my chart, but when I read my daily horoscope and it has nothing to do with what's actually happening in my day, that's what makes me shy away from wanting to base decisions around the
I
stars.
do believe in Saturn return. Have you heard of this?
I have not. I do
Okay.
believe in Mercury retrograde, unfortunately.
I feel like Mercury's in retrograde like every week. I'm like,
All
there's no way.
Passion Week. It's always
Like,
happening.
so Saturn return is the idea that in when you're like 27 to 29, you're like Saturn, the planet, returns to its original location that it was when you were born. So a lot of there's okay, between 27 and 29, you will start having like serious life changes and changing things about your life and recognizing patterns and making different decisions. So that people have been talking about that a lot lately. My favorite singer, Ariana Grande, in her
Hmm.
album, she like dedicated a whole song about Saturn returning. And I'm excited for it. I guess I'm in my Saturn return now because I'm
Yeah,
28.
you are.
So
And that's interesting. I made major, major life changes at 28.
really, like what?
Yeah. Ended my first long, significant relationship that I thought was the relationship. Uh, Moved across the country, started a new career.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm in a transition phase right now. I am getting married next year. So
Yes,
I'm excited about that.
congratulations.
Thank you. We've been together for a long time. And then can't talk about it too much on the pod just yet, but make like really starting to think about my career and what I want
Hmm.
to do, which is scary. So I don't know if that's just like a late 20s thing or maybe it's my Saturn return, but I am praying that when I come out of this Saturn return that like things are different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an exciting time, and it's such a great age that you are. So embrace it,
Yes.
enjoy it.
Thank
The
you.
the roller coaster of it all.
Thank you. Okay, a couple more.
Yeah,
Um,
this is fun.
okay, good. Chic or freak using ChatGPT to generate inspiration for writing.
I have a hate relationship with the use of AI in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you don't use
And
it, you don't touch it.
I don't touch it. I have touched it for research purposes. Like,
Okay.
you know, the book I'm writing now takes place in 2003. So I've asked it, what was personal technology like in 2003? You know, the flip phone,
Mm-hmm.
the dial up, the this, the
Yeah.
that. Because I can get just all the answers right there versus having to sort through, you know, the internet. So for research purposes, I think it can be useful. However, it should not be relied upon. Everything should be verified.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yeah, chat, I try to never use it for creative stuff.
Hmm.
Like for coming up with podcast questions, interview questions. I always come up with everything on my own.
Good. Yeah.
Um, I'll use it for rewording. I think it's good with that.
Yeah. Well, good. And I'm glad that you recognize that. I know people who use it for writing purposes, for, you know, blog posts for their businesses, people who aren't writers. My first, like a lot of my early freelance jobs have been virtually replaced by AI. You know, I used to, one of
Oh.
my first freelance jobs was reading scripts and book manuscripts and writing coverage. And now, you know, that can be dumped into a chat GPT type and, you know, the content generated. Um, I would always rather, and I tell my friends who use it for these purposes, don't just rely on its edits.
Yeah.
Always reread and reword when you can.
Yes. Good.
Yeah. But for
Um,
generating original content, I can't imagine how you could feel at all proud of or good about anything you've generated that you have not generated.
Chic or Freak, book clubs where you barely talk about the book.
Understandable, but as a writer, I'm going to say freak. I've spoken with a lot of book clubs. I mean, but I shouldn't say that because you're getting together and that's the whole purpose. You're connecting in person.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say chic,
Okay.
actually.
Follow up, Chic or Freak, not finishing a book for book.
Also understandable. I guess I would lean toward freak because how can you really talk about it if you don't
Yeah.
know? I mean, like, you know, we spoke at the top of this about Derek being such an asshole, and I said he
Hmm.
redeems himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I had a reader on Goodreads say I stopped reading it because I couldn't stand him, which means I didn't do my job well enough to plant the seeds that, you know, there is
No.
some redemption to come. But, yeah, I think, you know, books take books travel and you know
Yeah.
you don't end the way you began, so
Yes.
I think it really, if you're going to have an honest discuss or an open discussion about it, I think it really helps to have read it.
100%.
But if you're in a group of peers talking about your opinions on a book, I think it's good to have finished it.
I think so too. Because what else is the point, you know?
Right.
Okay. And then the last,
Except to get together, as we
yes,
said
getting
earlier.
together is always good, especially in this
Yeah.
age of technology. Any form of human
Hmm.
connection is unbeatable.
Agreed.
So for the last one, I know that you're in some writing groups and
Hmm.
or that you have been. I was wondering if you like what is a chic or freak for that? I think the concept of a writing group is so interesting, but what are the ways that people can be the best members of writing groups?
Well, by doing, if there are homework assignments, we have homework assignments in my writing group where we all take the same prompt and, you
Hmm.
know, free write a couple of pages or however long it is. And it's always disappointing when someone hasn't done that to bring it to the next group. Just being prepared, but it depends on the way the writing group goes. The way my current one, which hasn't really been very current since the pandemic, but we do meet on occasion, the way we operate is each time we meet, somebody has submitted work that, you know, content that they're working on several days in advance with the idea that we all read it and give critique.
Yeah.
And that we do our homework assignment, which is just a fun little free writing exercise. So being prepared is definitely chic, and not knowing how to critique is freak. I didn't mean to rhyme there. But, you know, you always lead with what works and you don't over suggest. I had a member of a writing group who would not just say the dialogue here doesn't work for me, but would tell you what it should be instead.
Yeah.
And that's not very helpful.
That is so interesting. I love that idea. Well, I am out of chics and freaks,
All
and
right. Well, this was fun.
this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on Literally Heinous. Book of Reservations. I have it. Brooklyn listeners, if anyone wants to borrow my copy, you are able to. or you can read the first book in the series and then watch out for the third book and hopefully a TV show.
Hopefully.
All right, Laura, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was
All
great.
right.